Hello everybody, welcome back to our coronavirus quarantine cooking class. I missed you all last week, but I hope you had a great time with Vanessa and Lawson and Avery. They had a great time, and we're hoping that they will come back and do some more cooking classes with you, maybe some cookies or something like that. Pot stickers has been one of the rumors I've heard, so keep an eye out for that. Something exciting has happened this week. We've started doing some shopping by appointment. So we're allowing one customer over the age of 18 in for a 20-minute chunk of time. So give us a call or email if you'd like to set something up for that. There have been in the afternoon, but we can accommodate in the morning if we don't have anything else set up yet. 443-1402 or info@acook'semporium.com. And we started on Tuesday, so this is our third day, and it has been a blast. I've been working with a lot of the customers, and it's just been so fun to see people in person and not just be on the phone with them. We do require a mask, and we're all wearing masks in here too, and we're sanitizing and doing all of that stuff to keep you guys safe and to keep us safe. But it's just been so nice to actually be able to work with human beings again. Customers, of course, my colleagues are human beings too, but it's just been fantastic. So we hope more people will take advantage of that. Everybody seems to be able to do what they need to do in 20 minutes. If you can come up with a list, that's definitely helpful. And myself or whoever's going to be working with you can help you find things around the store, answer questions, or we can just let you shop if that's what you'd like to do. So please give us a call, 207-443-1402. or info@acook'semporium.com to set up an appointment. So tonight and we're still doing curbside. Don't forget, we're still doing curbside. So you can call in your orders, we'll pack them all up for you, get your payment over the phone, and then have them ready for you to pick up between 10 and 4 every day of the week. So we're making chowder tonight, crab and corn chowder. I'm a huge fan of chowder. I love the thick soups like that. The soup that we're going to make tonight is very thick, so if you don't like it that thick, just add either less flour or more liquid to it, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to make it in this pot here, which is a 4-quart Dutch oven from Stobe. It's a French company. These are made in France. It's a really nice heavy cast iron and enameled. These are regularly $284.99. Through the end of this month, $99.99. You heard that correctly. $99.99. They come in this beautiful cherry red. We've got the matte black, white, and the turquoise. And these are awesome for anything from like the chowder that we're doing today. We also bake bread in these all the time. I gave one to one of my nieces for Christmas. Shout out to Julia, hello. And she's always sending me pictures of her bread or her stews or her roasts or whatever she's made in it. So they're really versatile, and at that price, you'd be silly not to get one. And for the first 3 people that call to order one, not tonight, but between 10 and 4 tomorrow, the first 3 people will get a free cookbook. This is from Le Creuset, and it's all about cooking in cast iron, lots of really good recipes. So I feel like I'm on QVC, order tonight and get this special gift. But do. So that's that. We're also going to make, because there's a little bit of time where the potatoes have to cook, we thought we'd make some no-knead bread. So I baked up a loaf already, and I'm pretty sure Heather posted the recipe for this. If she hasn't, she will. So the one thing with this is you have to have plenty of time. So you're going to mix up your dough, and I'll show you that in a little while, and then you want to let it sit for 12 to 18 hours. So make it in the evening and bake it off in the morning, or make it first thing in the morning and bake it off later in the day. But it's a really nice, it's a yeasted bread, and it's really nice. It gets nice and crisp in the oven. Where we baked this in this stoneware guy right here from Sassafras. It's a covered bread baker, and if I can reach, looks like that, except without the styrofoam in it. And you just put it in the oven, let it come up to heat as the oven comes up to heat. And then when you put your bread in there, it just cooks it immediately on the outside and gives it a nice crust. And then it kind of cooks in its own moisture, its own condensation, which gives it a crust. Take off the top for the last few minutes and it browns it up nicely. So let's get started on the chowder. So we're gonna start, and if you have the recipe, like I said at the beginning, if you don't like crab or you can't eat crab, do some other kind of seafood or do just a veggie chowder. There's all kinds of really fun things you can do. You can do a Mexican with cilantro instead of parsley and throw in some jalapeno and some red bell peppers or something for color. You can do scallop and shrimp if you don't like crab. As I said in the recipe, I use some of the Better Than Bouillon lobster bouillon. And as I was eating it, I thought, why the heck did I put crab in this? I should have used lobster. So I think that would be another really good addition if you have lobster around. So let's get started. We've got 5 tablespoons of butter, which is a lot of butter, but we're gonna make a roux. And if you were in on the mac and cheese class, then we've already talked about roux, but basically it's melted butter or fat. If you're dairy-free, you can make this without dairy. So we're gonna melt the butter, and we're gonna add flour to it, and that's gonna thicken it, and then it will thicken any liquid that we put into that as well. So I'm gonna chop up, put that on low since I'm not quite ready. So I'm gonna chop up my onion, and I like my veggies to be kind of bite-sized, especially in a chowder where there's so many different flavors. You don't want just a chunk of potato or just a chunk of onion in there. You want, at least I want, to have you know, a little bit of potato, a little onion, a little celery, a little crab, a little corn in each bite, so that you're really getting the flavors. So being careful not to slice your fingers and thumbs. So I'm not making them really tiny, but they're probably going to dissolve for the most part once they start cooking in there. Ooh, and that is a strong onion. I can feel it in my eyes. And we're just going to toss those into the butter. I'll turn that up just a little bit more. There's our onion. We have 2 stalks of celery, which again, I'm just going to cut fairly small. Most soups, not all, but most soups will start with, I believe it's called mirepoix, and it's onion, celery, and garlic. And that's kind of a great way to start any soup. It's going to give you a nice basic flavor, and you can turn that into something with seafood or something with meat or chicken, or just keep it vegetarian. But it's a really good basis for any kind of soup that you're going to make. And then I'm going to do 1 little clove of garlic here. If I had my druthers, I'd do a ton of garlic, but I'm not the only one going to be eating this. And you can mince this in a garlic press or the garlic twist, or you can just chop it by hand. It's, again, as with the other veggies, it's going to pretty much disintegrate once it gets cooking in there. So you're not going to get big, huge chunks of garlic, although I'm not sure that would be a bad thing if you like garlic as much as I do. So turn that up just a little bit. And
you look.
I'll just use this. So I'm just going to stir this. These pans, by the way, are enameled on the inside too, so they're really easy to clean up. they're black on the inside, but they are actually enameled. It's a kind of a matte enamel. So it's not just the raw cast iron. So you don't need to season it the way you do a cast iron pan. Okay, so we've got that going. I'm gonna need 1/3 of a cup of flour in our next section. So, and this is not baking, so it doesn't have to be anything, you know, it doesn't have to be super exact. It's just soup. Soup's easy. And we're gonna do a dry white wine, 1/2 cup. This is a Peak Pool. It's a really nice dry bottle of wine. This one right here is $12.99. We have a couple of them that are available for purchase. I had a different brand, but I had the Peak Pool the other night when I made this, so I put some in and then had had a glass with my chowder, and it was absolutely delicious. It's one of my new favorite wines. All right. So, these are sauteing our mirepoix. And we've got our wine and our flour. And so the other night I used about 2 teaspoons of the lobster base, and as I said, it was a little lobstery. So tonight I'm doing just over a teaspoon. I think I put 1.5 teaspoons. Yeah, 1.5 teaspoons. And I think it's going to be a little better. It's going to give some salt and a little of that seafood flavor, but it's not going to be overpoweringly lobstery. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If you don't have the lobster base or don't feel like investing in it, I really like the Better Than Bouillon bases. You can get them at Shaw's, Hannaford, Brackett's, but they do chicken, they do a veggie. The veggie's really strongly veggie flavored. I would probably, if you're not going to use this, I would use maybe just a tiny bit of chicken so that you're not getting a lot of the chicken flavor, but you're still getting the salt and stuff, which is what you want. All right, this is looking pretty good. So we want our onions to be sort of translucent. So I'm trying not to brown them too much, but I want them to be pretty well cooked. Not going to worry about the garlic or the celery so much. It's really once the onions get to that state, then you know the rest of the veggies are fine. All right, so I'm going to put my flour in. I'm going to stir that in, and that's going to immediately absorb up all the butter in there, or oil if you're doing dairy-free. You just want to let that cook for a little bit so that you're not getting a really floury flavor. You don't want to let it really brown up too much. Just let it cook in. Okay, and then I'm going to take my 1/2 cup of wine. And the key here, like when we made the mac and cheese, the key is to do your liquids fairly slowly. Because if you put all of your liquid in at once, you're probably going to get some big lumps from the flour. Turn it down a little bit so you can see how thick it is, sorry. So here's our broth. You can use just water here. If you want a really rich dairy flavor, you can use milk in this section. And basically what we're making here is what's called a velouté, which is a thickened broth soup. So it doesn't become a chowder until we add the dairy into it. And this, again, if you're dairy-free, you're not going to add any more dairy. You'll add some more water to it later on. to thin it out, but you can make the chowder without dairy in it, and it'll still be nice and thick and delicious. So I am letting that cook just a little bit, and I'm gonna prep my potatoes and put those in. I usually don't bother to peel my potatoes unless they're really old. You can absolutely peel them. I usually just wash them off. Even with sweet potatoes, I tend to eat the skin because I think there's a lot of nutrition. Maybe not so much in yellow potatoes, but sweet potatoes, a lot of good fiber. And these I'm going to cut again fairly small, like 1/2 inch square. It's nice if you have kind of all of your ingredients more or less the same size. It just gives it a nice look, nice texture. It's easier to eat. So the other thing I forgot to say at the beginning is that I think we're going to start working on some video tours of the store, so that you know, we might have a section on non-stick pans, or how to take care of cast iron, or how to choose good knives, things like that. So that's another fun thing that's going to be coming up here at Now You're Cooking, to kind of help people with their shopping experience, since we're not able to let you in the store en masse yet. So, you know, we're trying to innovate and keep it fun for you, and make sure that you can still get the stuff that you need to do your baking and cooking. So when I made this week, I used frozen corn. That's usually what I use, but I did buy canned corn today, and I'm going to put that in. If you're doing the frozen corn, you want to put that in now with your potatoes, so it has a chance to kind of cook through, defrost, and get some of the corn flavor into the soup, into the chowder. The canned corn, I got unsalted, but it's still, the juice in there is going to have a lot of corn flavor. If you really love corn chowder, you can use creamed corn, and that's really going to give you the best corn flavor. So that's going in there. So we've got our potatoes. I'm going to wait on my corn because I'm using canned. And I'm going to turn this up just a little bit. If you are using milk as your base, do not let it come to a boil, because you're going to get that skim on it and it can start separating. So just keep an eye on it. It can simmer, can come to a nice simmer, but make sure it doesn't get into a full rolling boil. So we'll just give this a little heat. And this should take about probably 8 to 10 minutes. If you cut your potatoes pretty small, they should cook up pretty well. So I'm going to bring this up to close to a boil, or if I'm not paying attention, it will be a full boil. And then I'm going to turn it down to a simmer again, and we're going to get to our bread. So starting from scratch, we need flour. Let me get my yeast. It's just the absolute easiest bread to make, and again, all you need for it is time. Time for it to sit. You can go off and do whatever you want. So we have flour, we have yeast, we have salt, and we have water, and that's it. Sometimes I'll add in some garlic powder and rosemary or something like that. You can put black olives in it if you like olive bread. You can do all kinds of things to it. You can put some wheat flour in there to give it a little bit more oomph, or a little cornmeal.
Where'd you get your flour?
What's that?
Where'd you get your flour?
Oh, I got my flour at Brackett's. This is Pillsbury, and it is bleached and bromated. I usually like the unbleached, unbromated. So it'll work just the same, but it's just less touched. The Fountain here on Front Street, if you go on their website, they're actually doing some groceries, and I believe you can get yeast and flour from them. You put your order in online, and then they'll get it together and let you know when it's ready, and you can go pick it up. But I know flour is still pretty hard to come by in most places, so that's another option. And look at me paying attention. So the other thing is that while this is cooking, you do want to stir it occasionally because the potatoes, because there's so much starch in them, they tend to cook to the bottom of the pan. You don't have to stir it constantly, but just keep an eye on it. And give it a little stir now and then. So 3 cups of flour. I've got 1/4 of a teaspoon of yeast, just a little tiny bit of yeast. I've got salt, and this is 1 1/4 teaspoons. And this is a flaky sea salt, so I'm just gonna, we keep forgetting to buy table salt, so I'm improvising here. So I'm just gonna crush it up a little bit, so because it's so flaky, I wanna make sure it's distributed well throughout the dough. So there's 1 1/4. And then I'm just gonna give that a little stir. So that's just stirring that in. And then the recipe says 1 5/8 cups of water. I say forget the 5/8, just do 1 1/2. That 1/8 of water is way too persnickety, and it's not gonna make that much difference. If you absolutely have to, you can always add more water. And I'm just stirring that in, just gently. And it's going to be a very ragged dough. You're not going to knead it. You're not going to mix it like you would a normal loaf or a normal dough for a regular loaf. So that's pretty much it. We're done. And that's what it looks like. So that took me all of, what, maybe a minute to make a loaf of bread or a batter. And I'm just going to cover that up. You can use a kitchen cloth or whatever, and it's just going to sit out for the next 12 hours, and we'll bake that off in the morning. Meanwhile, I have one that I made last night. So this one's, it probably sat a little longer than it absolutely needed to. So this has been about 24 hours. And generally speaking, 12 to 18 is probably as much as you really need to leave it. But I don't think there'll be anything wrong with it. I hope there won't. It's bread, it'll be fine. So you can see it's pretty wet. But it has risen substantially since I made it. So I'm just going to gently pull this into the shape of my loaf pan. So I'm going to do this about 2 hours. This is going to sit here for about 2 hours, just gently. So I'm just kind of pulling it a little bit. I'm not kneading it. I'm not getting too rough and tumble with it. It's just gently getting it into the right shape. And this is the pan we're going to use, just like the one that we showed you earlier that's new. When you use it a bit, it gets kind of dark. So that's just coming up to heat in the oven. And this is just going to sit here for about 2 hours, and then we'll put it into the oven. So when you're ready to put it in the oven, it's going to rise a little bit just on its own. And so you take your cloth off. And then this is when it's really handy to have one of these silicone sheets. You just kind of gather it up and roll it into the pan. Remember that it's very hot because it will have just come out of the oven. So don't do what I normally do and just grab the lid with your bare hand. So that's it. So in 2 hours, we'll put this into the pan, put it in the oven, bakes for 30 minutes at 450. Turning down my potatoes. And then you take the lid off and let it go for another about 15 to 20 minutes until you get a nice golden brown. And it's really delicious. Delicious, delicious bread. Just gonna get the dough off my fingers. I'll be right back. We make this bread a lot for like our wine tastings and so on, when we have the bread out with the oil and vinegar to dip in. And it's always a huge hit, and people are always asking for the recipe. So now you have the recipe, and you know how to make it. So these guys, probably not quite done yet. But you can let them go for a little while longer. I'm going to turn that all the way down to low. See how tender they are. Yeah, they're getting there. They're still a little bit hard. But I'm going to go ahead and add my nutmeg, which is about 1/4 of a teaspoon. And this stove runs very hot, so if you have a gas stove and you can't get it to stop boiling, just put another one of the grates, if you have them, like these guys, just put that under the other one, or on top of the other one, and so that it lifts your pan up a little bit, and that should take care of it. Because I'm not using dairy yet in here, I'm not going to worry about it boiling.
We also have diffusers for the burners.
And we also, thank you, Heather, we also have diffusers, which will give you a much more even heat underneath the pan. And they're great for things like tagines and other stuff that can't go directly on the heat, or shouldn't go directly on the heat. So we got our nutmeg, and we have a teaspoon of salt. And I'm actually not going to use a whole teaspoon because I have some of that lobster base in there, and that has a lot of salt in it. And you can always add salt later. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to take salt out of a soup. And again, I'm just grinding it because it's flake salt instead of table salt. And then we have a little pepper. If you don't like the look of the black pepper, which some people don't, you can use white pepper. White peppers, it works just the same, but you can't see it, so it's kind of hidden in there. I don't like to hide anything about my cooking. Get it all out in the open. Okay. Now this is when we're going to add our corn. It is corn chowder after all. So this is a great opener. I just always forget how to use it. But actually that was really simple. It's because I overthink things, I think, usually. This is from OXO, and this is one of the nice ones that cuts around the edge, so you don't get, it just takes the top off really nicely, and you don't have that really sharp edge. I'm just going to drain this a little bit. Actually, you know what? I'm not. I'm going to put the whole thing in there. I'm feeling wild tonight, because that's going to add some more of the corn flavor. I hope I don't scare anybody by the way I cook. But it's sort of instinctive, and I just think it's fun to experiment a lot. You know, once you've made this chowder, if it works for you, you figure out what, like, you like it a little thinner, put some more water, some more broth, or some more milk into it, and just start experimenting with different fish or different vegetables or whatever, and come up with your own family recipe that everybody likes. It's like your signature thing. And this is beautiful. Oh, that smells good. Fresh crab meat. I got this at Plants. They often have a frozen crab meat from Canada, which has a little bit more of the knuckle meat, so the bigger chunks. But this is really nice too, because this is going to just go through the whole chowder, because it's just going to flake up. Oh my God, that smells so good. And some half and half, and we want a cup of half and half. I don't know where my cup is, so we'll do 2 half cups. And you'll see a cup of half and half in here doesn't sound like a lot to make it really chowdery, but it's going to be plenty to make it really creamy and rich. But add more if you like it with more, add more. There are no rules in my kitchen. I'm going to turn that up just a little bit. I definitely don't want to boil it now that I have the cream in there, the half and half. And again, if you really like it creamy, don't use half and half, use heavy cream. But I don't know if you can see, it's got a pretty good consistency. It's pretty thick. And I'm just going to take a little taste for salt and spices. Pretty good. I'm not going to add anything to that. And this probably should go a little bit longer. So I'm going to give it just another minute, and I'm going to slice some of this beautiful bread that we made earlier. You can see, you can hear what a nice crispy crust that has. Be careful with your knife because it'll slide all over that crust if you don't use a little pressure there. So, and you can see it's got a really nice, chewy, gooey, gummy, nice interior there. Imagine that hot out of the oven, smeared with butter, just dripping through all those little holes. Yum, yum. All right, let's add some parsley. So you will know when your chowder is done because your onions will be cooked and your potatoes will be cooked. And until your onions and potatoes are cooked, I would just wait. Have a piece of bread and butter. And let's just scoop out a little bit of this. Nice and colorful. So you've got your corn and your parsley and your potatoes, and we're going to take just a little bit of crispy bacon here, put that on top, serve it with a slice of bread, and voila, and bon appetit. Don't forget to call us about appointment shopping, curbside shopping, FaceTime shopping, whatever we can do to help. We're trying to be as flexible as possible. And don't forget, these pots are on sale regularly $284.99, on sale till the 31st of May for $99.99. Don't let it slip by without you getting one. First 3 people, free Cooking with Cast Iron cookbook. You're gonna love it. Enjoy your chowder. Hope you had a good time tonight, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.